I've never really had an issue with my Honda CRF110 having enough power to play around in the yard or on the little mini moto tracks that we've set up. It's always felt capable. It's always felt good. Never I wish it went faster sort of moment for me. But when I was changing out the air filter the other day, I came across something in the airbox that made me really curious. So being a tinkerer of sorts, I like to experiment with things and see if I can make the bikes better. Better yet, if it's for free. So that's what we're going to do in this video, is uncover what I found in the airbox, and let's see if it actually makes a difference. Honda packaged this bike pretty good. The airbox is not in an extremely difficult to reach location. It's behind the left side shroud, where kind of their radiator would be on a motocross bike. And to access that, all you really need to do is pull that shroud back a bit, then you can get your screwdriver in there to remove the cover of that airbox to expose the filter. Now the air filter in my 110 looks pretty dirty. I don't know if I've ever changed it, and I have no idea when the previous owner changed it, so it was kind of a surprise going into this project. But we see, as we open it up, there's this thing in there. What is that? Some sort of metal plate. So I want to see what was behind that. It was only held in by these two screws. When you look on the other side, there's a really restrictive screen there. Blowing through it, I couldn't really feel too much air on the other side. The first thought that came to my head was that this was some sort of backfire screen. Some screen to eliminate fuel, maybe backfiring into the airbox or diffusing it, kind of like a spark arrestor would be on a muffler. I don't know exactly what it was for. I don't doubt that Honda engineers these bikes to perfection, but there's also a lot of times where they've added features because of emissions or for other reasons to comply with some sort of compliance item, I guess you can say. Typically, one of the first things you do when you try to modify something with an engine is to give it more air and more fuel. So this is basically the first step in producing more power. How can we get more air into the motor? And then when we do, and if we do, how can we give it more fuel to equal out that air, to get that air-fuel ratio where we want it to be? First step for me was to get rid of this restrictive screen and see if we can get more air into the bike. The one thing that I did know is that Honda did engineer this screen assembly to also be a rigid mount for the air filter. With the intake sucking in air to the carburetor, I didn't want that panel style filter to be sucked in also and open up side gaps to where dust could get let in. So I wanted to maintain the structure of this, but just get rid of that screen. Luckily, if you cut away those plastic nubs and lift the edge of the metal stamping that holds the screen in, you can pull that screen out fairly easily, which is what I did. Without the screen, the metal plate has all these holes drilled in it. Doesn't really look like it's too much of a restriction to me. So I'm going to keep that in there, like I said, to keep that panel filter from being warped by the intake. So all I did was just seat it back down onto those plastic nubs that I'd cut off, which there was actually a little bit of room to do so. It sealed down nicely. And then I just folded the edges back over on that stamping. This whole experiment started with me changing out the air filter. I was planning on upgrading to this twin air filter rather than going with the OEM filter. They're just easy to get, and it doesn't really hurt to go with an aftermarket on the basis that they could improve horsepower, and they're just really easy to get. So we're going to spray it down with a little bit of Maxima air filter oil. We're going to put it back in with our newly freed up assembly. You can probably follow my logic a little bit better now, seeing inside this airbox. That big horn right there is the intake straight to the carburetor. Without that structure, I just couldn't imagine that panel filter wouldn't be getting sucked into that opening and warping the filter and possibly allowing dirt around the sides. So keeping this structure in there, to me, wasn't going to sacrifice horsepower. Even if it did, the minimal amount it would sacrifice would be worth the filter acting in its original intent and held in there solidly in place as the OEM designed it, just without that screen restriction. Most aftermarket air filters are going to be cut perfectly to go in the OEM openings. The twin air in my case fit perfect and looked to be a great solution to replace the OEM filter. Now we're just going to button everything back up, replacing the air filter box cover, and then get the shroud back in there. And next thing I want to do is take a look at the spark plug to see if I can get an idea on how rich or how lean the motor was running currently with the setup that I had in it. My spark plug in particular looked a little dark, like it was running a little rich, which is too much fuel. By leaning out the mixture by way of more air through the air filter, I might get this to look chocolatey brown and hot cocoa dusted like it should be. So let's see if this works. Alright, so after the airbox mod, getting rid of that backfire screen in there, we're going to let it warm up a little bit, and we're going to shake it down around the track to see if it bogs out any. Basically what I'm looking to do is just make sure that it's got a little bit crisper of a throttle response. Hopefully opening up that airway a little bit will lean the mixture out. Since that spark plug looked pretty black, that means it's got a lot of fuel. So that means it's got room to be a little bit leaner. It means less fuel. So hopefully while providing a little bit more airflow to that mix in the carb, it'll lean up the mixture exactly where we want it to be, which is like a chocolate brown look on that spark plug. Okay, so we shook it down on the track for a couple laps. It's hard to stop doing that. These bikes are so much fun, especially when you have them set up properly for a bigger rider like me. I'm 200 pounds, 6 foot, 6'1" or so. So you got to kind of bring the bike up so it fits you a little bit better. And it started to rain a little bit, so I pulled in, but big fun. The throttle response definitely is improved from the last couple of years of me kind of realizing that it's got a bog when I'm going through corners. So that could either be the carb cleaning that I did. However, I've done that a few times before, and it still didn't cure it. I mean, it made it a little bit better for a little while. So we'll see. But I think the airbox mod is going to be good for this bike. It felt a little bit snappier. It definitely didn't bog out, and it's pretty solid feeling bike. So I don't know if it adds horsepower or not. Like I said before, I'm not worried about that. This isn't going to be a race bike for me. I don't think I'm going to get crazy into the pit bike racing or nothing. I just like having it for my backyard track and for riding around with the kids and everything. So I like to keep it stock. The carb has very limited adjustment in its stock form, if any at all. I don't believe it does. I think it has a cap over the air fuel mix screw. So even if you wanted to adjust it, I don't feel as if you could do that easily anyways. So I kind of just want to leave it how Honda had it set up, and just by doing that little airbox hack there, putting a fresh filter in it, I don't think filters by themselves do too much at all. I mean, it's just easier to buy a twin air than it is to buy an OEM. You can get them anywhere and the quality's fine. I don't think that's really going to increase horsepower, but hopefully open it up, getting rid of that screen, because when you blow through that screen, you don't feel air on the other side too much, as opposed to the plate that's in there with the holes, obviously when you blow through that, you can feel the air coming through. So it has to be flowing more air. And I thought it was very important to keep that plate in there to maintain the structure inside that air box, so that panel type foam filter wouldn't bend and get sucked in. I don't want air getting around the side of that filter, so keeping that structure in there and that plate was important in my opinion. And I don't know, it was a lot of extra work. I don't know if it's going to reduce horsepower, but I don't think it's going to change it too much. Like I said, I'm not worried about that. Just wanted to maybe try to lean the mixture up a little bit by getting a little bit more air through this bike. So that's where we're going to call it good for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope if you try it, it works better for your 110. Let me know what you think in the comment, and thanks for watching.